Kia ora, welcome to the last pre-election Politics from Canterbury podcast coming at you straight out of Ireland. We've got a historian, trainee historian, student historian, Liam Foster. And today we've got Tony, a long-time Labour Party member. We are, of course, politically neutral. Today we've decided to just keep it quite simple, quite short. We want to talk about River of Freedom, the movie that hasn't been reviewed too often in the mainstream media? Anyway, we've all seen it. Liam, what did Tony's seen it? You walked out after about an hour. Tony, why?
Well, I thought it sort of got a bit repetitive after an hour. Yeah, I think it was. It was most of it could have been cut an hour shorter, but I think it had been made to make that extra an hour and a half to sort of extend it. But it was a very well executed production. I was surprised. I'd love to know what the actual cost of producing it was.
A labour of love, I suspect. Liam, your quick thoughts to kick off this River of Freedom?
I thought it was a great counterpoint to the mainstream media's claim that it was a violent protest. Not that I hold an opinion, I don't know enough on either side, but I think in the Rivers of Freedom they certainly portrayed themselves as more of a hippie left festival than the anti-Semitic, anti-Islamic, fascistic kind of political movement that a lot of the media was portraying, that they were kind of just inherited it from the US. And yeah, I thought it was a good counterpoint. I don't know enough on either side to comment and say which is truer, but it certainly made me increase my sympathies for the anti-mandate protesters.
But I thought I didn't actually go to any Takaka raves in the 1990s, but I felt after 2.5 hours that I had in fact been at a Takaka rave because there was quite a lot of dancing in it. What I just wanted to briefly look at is, because we are focused on the election, we are focused on politics, and I thought that this actually could have quite an impact on the election, and because it was slickly made, it was well produced, and I thought if you were sort of neutral and you went to it, you probably didn't think much of Labour. You probably disliked Labour after 2.5 hours of it. Tony?
Yeah,
or an hour after.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely it was well aimed up at the government, specifically Jacinda Ardern. I mean, even.
Well, who was it? We saw Michael Woods. He was a baddie. If this was like a movie, Michael Woods was a baddie. The Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, she probably fell into the baddie camp as well. And Trevor Mallard.
Mallard, yeah.
So he was also a baddie. Where I'm coming at with this is, it's an election. There's a lot of people that are putting a lot of money into different, trying to influence people's opinion. We've got the Taxpayers Union with their big bus and a monster on it, which I don't think is going to sway anyone's opinion personally. I think it's interesting that this movie's just gone around New Zealand. Thousands and thousands of people have seen it. And I think you're going to have your opinion far more swayed by sitting in a cinema for 2.5 hours watching this than getting your little Facebook ads from the Taxpayers Union or the CTU.
I have to agree that it did, because we sat through the whole thing, and I think after about an hour and a half, you and I were just kind of going.
Yeah, but we weren't more neutral than I think some of the people seeing it may have been, because it did drag, but it also, there were little bits of it you thought, maybe. Even if you agreed with what the government did, when you saw the movie, you're like, I can sort of see their opinion. So I think from that particular protest movement, or that adjacent, like it's not just the thousands of people at Parliament, it's those thousands of people that are sympathetic to the protesters.
Sorry.
No, you first.
Just one of the things I thought was very effective about the production was that it was very hard to judge exactly how many people were actually watching. Who were actually participating in it. It was a very clever photography, I thought, that you would not know what sort of figures, judging from that movie, that was well designed to make it look a hell of a lot more than what was actually there. That would be my view.
You had some quite professional people behind it.
Oh yeah, look at them.
But you've written them down. Tony's actually researched who was behind it. You've got a couple of names there.
We've got Eric Clapton for a start, and then this Robin Manetti Grazia, who's some Italian suspected. So he's been suspended from Twitter at a climate denier.
Okay, but Eric Clapton, I think, offered a couple of tunes for free. So
I guess so, yeah.
yeah,
We've
But
got
I
him down
mean-
as an anti-vax, a heroin addict. That's good.
Well,
I
he
like
is.
that.
Well, he was 10 years on heroin. It's funny he went anti-vaccine, but anyway. But he was associated with this Robin Minotti Grisadia, so that's the connection there. But it's amazing that they've come all the way to New Zealand to do this.
well, I think we live in the modern world where they just. I think Eric Clapton just sent his music through some sort of BitChute or whatever.
Yeah.
There was one politician that didn't come out too bad. He's not in Parliament at the moment, but he might be coming back. I actually went along because I was interested to see how much Winston Peters is in it. He wasn't in it much, but he was quite central.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a positive viewpoint. As well as Winston Peters, there was a woman on his list called Kirsten Murphy, and she was in it quite a lot.
Marama Fox as well.
Oh, Marama Fox, yeah, the former co-leader of the Maori Party. So, yeah. We are succinct, and we do want to just leave you to get out and vote, which we do encourage. But I just want to wrap it up with the last little thought on this, is that in the River of Freedom, they mentioned a poll, and it said there was almost 50% of the supporters at Parliament, and we actually, in the back, when we got Radio New Zealand's documentary, almost 50% were sort of Labour Green supporters. So it wasn't necessarily, I guess, what's now called the Freedom Movement. So these are people that voted Labour Greens, and I'm pretty certain they're not voting Labour Greens this time round.
Because living in Littleton, you get a lot of Labour and Greens voters, and you had businesses there that were very anti-vax. So this idea that the anti-vax movement was exclusively a thing of the right. Actually, it was kind of, you had your sandal patchouli wearing, your sandal wearing, patchouli wearing lefties on one side, and then you had your kind of, absolute libertarians on the right. So yeah, like that's, I think, demonstrated in the documentary quite well, is the political kind of diversity of the anti-vaxxers.
Well, I think one thing that I noted was the use of trucks.
Yeah.
That is a real white ring kind of. You go back to the Allende's, moving of the Allende government, and in Chile, that was trucks being a big part of the right wing. So, and they used that in that movie quite effectively.
But there's a few trucks in it, and I think that was trying to tie into the Canadian trucker protest. But anyway, I thought it was quite well shot. I think it was kind of an interesting thing, but just sticking back with the policy, I think it's really interesting that it's gone around the country about 4 weeks. I think it started about 4 weeks ago, and thousands of people have seen this movie now. It hasn't really been covered anywhere else. We might not be mainstream, but literally the mainstream haven't reviewed it apart from Graham Tuckett and stuff.
Platform as well.
The platform,
that's
the
not mainstream,
platforms,
but yeah.
Yeah, no, the platforms reviewed it. But I think,
Positively, actually.
yeah, I think this movie will have had an impact on the New Zealand election, and maybe other people aren't picking that up. So it's good night from me.
Good night.
Last words, Liam, Tony?
Get out and vote, and just think of Christmas when you do it.
Tony?
Yes, I'd say get out and vote after looking at this movie. Yes.
Sure. We'll do one more.